The realities we have come to learn is that President Obama was just like most every other president. Some might even say a rebirth of the policies and failures of President Carter. But media has shielded the president. Gone are the headlines of mortgage foreclosures, though throughout his presidency, mortgage foreclosures have created and maintained all-time highs. Gone are the daily images of protests of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, though we continue to fight in those faraway lands. And long after what were the campaign promises to have these wars ended. Removed are the accusations of torture and wrongful confinement in Gitmo, though the facility remains open and not one single trial has begun. In fact, any negative about the Obama administration has been downplayed as much as possible. The abject failure of the stimulus to achieve the goals stated by President Obama himself have been allowed to recede from the news. The politically motivated loans to Solyndra and its predictable bankruptcy have received, after receiving $500 million of our taxpayer dollars, has barely drawn the attention of the news media. The unmitigated failure to protect the nation's borders is discussed in passing. The absolute absence of leadership in international affairs or the domestic economy has been completely deflected. The growth in absolute powers of the government, like enacting the war on Libya through the abuse of the War Powers Act, that was simply let go after initially just glancing over the subject. Instead, the focus has been directed intently and firmly on the Tea Party and any political opposition to the media-beloved president. It is the Tea Party to blame for everything. They are the terrorists. They are the racists. The destruction of America, according to how many in the media are reporting. But, as we know, the media has its darling, and he must be protected. I ask of you, what has President Obama brought to America? What was his sea change, as supporters would suggest? Deficit spending has increased almost exponentially. Spending at levels so ill-conceived that even slowing down the pace of continued debt resulted in the first downgrade of creditworthiness this nation has ever heard of or seen in its history. The post-racial dream of many liberals and Democrats has failed to materialize. America has long fought with the poison of racism, and over time, this is slowly improving. But President Obama has made no stride forward. Not on this front. His beer summit was a result of his rash and uninformed outburst, injecting race into a situation that had no basis for it. The word racist currently has been stitched upon anyone who dares oppose any policy of the president, no matter their skin color or political ideology. Yes, in fact, the argument can be made that race relations in America have taken a step backwards since President Obama has taken office. In looking at President Obama, we see that there was never a change to a new anything that he proposed. Well, except for perhaps a more European-styled, socialist-structured nation. Neither are views that caused the election of President Obama or have kept supporters for him. His actions have only reinforced the policies and spending of government and government intrusion in our personal lives. But the Tea Party is at the forefront of a wave, a resurgence of public enforcing the power of the people, of standing up and stating a belief in the face of scorn and opposition from those that would lose power from such of your actions. Yet the media would try to applaud protesters in Wall Street who disrupt the ability of Americans to earn a wage. 700 were arrested last week for blocking the Brooklyn Bridge. Of course, the fact that, to my knowledge, and I am sure that of all of you, there has never been a single arrest of a single member of a Tea Party in the entire nation at any event over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, since the start of the Tea Party. But the news media finds that to be not newsworthy. But I want to return to my initial point. The more frenzied attack of the pundits and the media, the more substantial the resulting effect is on the change, and that is coming. Let's consider the 2010 midterm elections. The Tea Party was denounced by the media. They were laughed at by some politicians. The views for fiscal responsibility and conservatism cast aside as an extreme view that had no place in American politics. This all belittled what should not be belittled: the voice of the American people. The more derision that was placed on the Tea Party based on unfounded and distorted media coverage, the more Americans that have sought to seek the truth. That is the true power of the Tea Party movement, having Americans once again take active part in their government. The greatest change is the demand that the elected officials live up to their obligations and oaths of office. Thus, against the media hype and directed political rage, the midterm elections made a demonstrative mark on the American political landscape. The 2012 presidential election can be even bigger. The media has forgotten a couple of defining elements about America. Politicians that have been coddled in their seats of power have ignored these points as well. America loves an underdog. We want to know what they're about, what motivates them. If they have solid reasons and just goals, we support that underdog and we join that cause. We are a nation that cannot be long led as sheep, because we will act. We may be a nation that at times is slumbering, but we do awaken and take strong action when it is required. This is the reason that I think the Tea Party should be pleased with the negative media attention that is focused upon you, because it is the most direct manner in which to gather more Americans and more of America, to pass along more factual knowledge, more first-hand knowledge. Because if the majority of the liberal media is so unanimous in opposition, there must be more to the story than what we're being told. And I think we all know that. The Tea Party message is one that does not have to be accepted by everyone. But the theme of America standing up for what we believe in should be. The concept of enacting the freedoms granted by the Constitution is a concept that is integral to this nation. These are two of the main reasons why, in recessions and in boom economic times, the world always travels to our borders and seeks to have entry. This is the reason I'm speaking today, to think and to further encourage you, to commend you on doing what so many have forgotten that Americans have a right to do, which is to speak out without threat of violence or disruption of life, to demand that elected officials represent their constituents, to rally you to cause others, even those that oppose your aspirations, to become involved in the political process. The media has long been satisfied with presenting a singular view of the nation and its politics. In recent years, due to the advent of cable news and the internet, the stranglehold of what version of political fact is disseminated to the masses has been lost. The reality that options are not given by political parties, but granted by the public, is once again flourishing. This needs to continue. So let me backtrack on something. And I want to correct something that I have already stated to you. This is not a sea change. Not in the sense that has occurred in the past. This is a return. Not just to the constitutional values that founded this nation, but to the core belief that the founding fathers based this nation upon. Values that are accepted by every American, regardless of their political affiliation. That we, the people, are the voice, the will, and the strength of this nation. If you give up on that theme, if you falter or allow the media to control the message that's being sent out to the rest of America, then and only then will the government win. And by that I mean a government that has the power over the people. A government that can dictate what people think and do. Now, if that sounds like George Orwell, or perhaps China, it is. Well, I doubt that anyone in this room is not aware of the consequences of falling to the propaganda of the media in defense of its elected favorites. Those that you may contact or may hear this message, they may not be. Because, in my opinion, we are far closer to a socialist China or a version of Orwell's 1984 than some would like to admit. When the government can mandate that every American must buy a product and dictate what products they must have and how far and what we can do, how far from these extremes can we actually be? How little of the America we grew up with and hope that our children will live in will there be? Now, I know I beat up on the media, and that's not entirely fair. The media is not one single entity or a blanket that covers every entity out there. I am a member of the press, yes. And there are others besides myself, like the Wall Street Journal, the National Review, hundreds of bloggers and online publications, as well as some more traditional sources of fair, or at least not completely liberal and compressed thought that still do exist. These unbiased, or at least relatively unbiased, media outlets need to be nurtured. More so, they need to be used to expand the interaction of the American people and restrain politicians to the obligations of the oaths of their office. To be the voice of their constituents and act on to the benefit of those constituents. Not that of a partisan political party and the special interests that they cater to. America is a great nation. The American people are the most generous and fair-minded people in the entire world. But any nation can falter if the political elite and the former oversight over politics that was the news media is allowed to run ramshot over the public. The Tea Party is the best thing to happen to American politics in decades. Never forget that. Never let the media or anyone else take that from you. And I thank you for hearing me out.